But before that, we'll see the ayat in the Holy Quran, and I've removed the Arabic version. It's only English. So I'll read it and then we'll go further. Forbidden, forbidden to you for food are dead meat, blood, the flesh of swine, and that on which has been invoked the name of other than God. So just going back on it, any meat, whether it is halal or haram, permissible or not permissible, if it is dead, it's not permitted. Then the blood of any animal, halal or haram, haram is not permissible in Islam, it's not permitted. And swine flesh, pork, is not permissible. And the last item on this is on which the name of other than Allah, God, has been invoked. That means if you have sacrificed, if you have slaughtered the animal in the name of any other deity, then it would not be permissible for the Muslims to eat. And of course, the dead are animals that have been strangled or dead by violent blow or by goring of horns or by falling or by being eaten by the wild animals. And lastly, it says, unless you are able to slaughter it. So in case the animal has fallen, it still has life, and you are able to slaughter it, it's permitted. Otherwise, it's not permitted. It's Surah Maida, verse 4. And if we look at it, we have a few, just summarizing it, that the Islam permits consumption of a few animals only and birds. Strictly prohibited is pork. What we call is najasul and. Blood is prohibited, carrion, dead animals, all carnivorous animals and all birds of prey, they are prohibited. And that simply means, going to the next, that simply means that all herbivorous animals, not all, but just herbivorous animals, which are even-toed, that means which have split hoof, and that are ruminants. There are three characteristics of these ruminants. Ruminant, herbivorous. Herbivorous animals, those that feed on plants, that means no carnivorous animal. And those that have split hoof, and they are ruminants. They are permitted in Islam. Another condition for an animal to be slaughtered in Islam is that the animal must be healthy. Sick animals are not permitted. We're having Qurbani in the next week. No sick animal is permitted for the Qurbani or the slaughtering at this occasion. Then secondly, this animal which is meant for slaughtering, it must be free from any apparent or hidden disease. That means it must be disease-free. And thirdly, of course, it must be legally owned. All right. So we now come to the prerequisites for slaughter in Islam. It's a very critical element in Islam, and slaughtering in every religion, in every legislation is essential for preparing the food, for preparing the meat. There are 2-3 things in slaughtering. Firstly, it's the pre-slaughter management and bleeding. Pre-slaughter management means how the animals will be kept. And this is regulated, both of these, pre-slaughter management and bleeding. They are both regulated by religious practices and legislations. There are several ahadiths by the Holy Prophet that guide us on handling, care, and slaughter of animals. And mind it, these guidelines are over 14 centuries old. I'll be translating these guidelines into our scientific language as well, and you will see that this modern science has just testified the implications of what Islam has said 14 centuries ago. I hope I'm not too fast. Islamic method of slaughtering is based on two important principles. One is called tasmiyah and the other is called tazkiyah. The first principle, tasmiyah, means invoking the name of Allah. That is, slaughtering is being done with His permission. And tazkiyah means purification, that you purify the animal of the blood, which has already been declared unlawful in Islam. And these two things, that is tasmiyah and tazkiyah, they are in accordance with several commands given in the Holy Quran and the Ahadith. Holy Quran, those who are non-Muslims with us, I welcome them. Holy Quran is the religious book of the Muslims, and Ahadith are the sayings and the deeds of the Holy Prophet. And both of these, they guide the Muslims in every walk of life. Going back to tasmiyah, tasmiyah simply means invoking the name of Allah, invoking the name of God Almighty. And this is done when we are slaughtering the animal, when the incision is being made, we simply recite some words like Subhanallah or La ilaha illallah or Allahu Akbar or Bismillah Allahu Akbar. We recite these words, and in fact, what it simply means is that we are taking a life of an animal, and this life is granted by the Almighty Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So, for taking the life, and that life, remember, Islam permits taking the life of an animal for eating purposes, not for game. So, we recite some, we invoke the name of Allah on the animal while in making incision. Tazkiyah is the second part. Tazkiyah means purification. And we purify the meat of the blood. It has already been said that your blood is prohibited. And this blood in the animal body, it has something like more than almost 100 different chemicals, and that blood can be harmful to the human beings. The consumption of blood, it has been prohibited in the Holy Scriptures. Torah, Bible, they prohibit the consumption of blood. In the Holy Quran, it is prohibited. And because all lawful animals and birds, they contain blood, it must be drained as per these commands. So we have got tasmiyah, invoking the name of Allah, and tazkiyah, cleaning the meat of blood. And you are removing maximum blood. It is not possible to remove all the blood from a carcass. So maximum, and we see which method is good for removing the blood. The slaughtering rules, they apply to animals under our control. They don't apply to wild animals. Any animal that has gone wild, any bird that has gone wild and that cannot be reached or caught, it falls under the category of game animals. And for game animals, we have different rules which we are not going to talk about in this session. The camel is slaughtered by a different method. It is called nahar, and this involves piercing the throat with sharp spear-like instrument while standing. We don't lay the animal, we don't lay the camel, but we slaughter it while it's standing. Coming down to the slaughtering process in Islam, let's see what are the essentials of slaughtering. The Holy Prophet ﷺ, this is a hadith, and he has said, verily Allah has prescribed proficiency in all things. Do the things well, that's what it means. Thus, if you kill well. And if you slaughter well. Going further, he said, Sallallahu said, let each one of you sharpen his blade and let him spare suffering to the animal he slaughters. So there are minimum two things in this hadith. You have got to do it very well. You must sharpen the knife. It must be very sharp. That's one. And secondly, the animal should not be tortured. It should not suffer as a result of the slaughter or as a result of the knife on him. The consolidated process of slaughtering in Islam is there. The slaughterer, we have requirements for the slaughterer. He must be an adult Muslim, adult, not a child, not a kid. And he must believe in the Holy Scriptures. That means he must believe in the Torah, in the Bible, and in the Holy Quran. And he must be in possession of his mental faculties. That means the slaughterer must be of sound mental health. As far as the slaughtering instrument is concerned, we again have another hadith in which the Holy Prophet ﷺ advised his companions to use very sharp instrument. Imagine these guidelines are given more than 1400 years ago. So very sharp instrument, that means no pain to the animal or minimum pain to the animal. And he further instructed that sharpening of the knife should not be performed in front of slaying animals. The animal that is to be slaughtered should not see the knife. In fact, the requirement is that we hide the knife before slaughtering. In fact, the animals, they have senses. When they see the knife, they get excited. They get nervous because they know something is going to happen. They may even know that they are going to face the death. But we have got to be careful that we should not excite the animals. We should not make them nervous. The procedure or the position in which the animal may be slaughtered, I'm not talking of camel. I'm not talking of animals that are wild. We are talking of the animals that are under our control. That means cow, goat, sheep, etc. First requirement is that this animal must be laid on its left flank, preferably, not necessarily, preferably facing Qibla, and reciting the name of Allah, which we have already mentioned, Subhanallah or La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, or Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, give a sharp or quick incision with a very sharp knife on front of the neck. That means we give the incision while cutting the neck. And what parts do we cut? Is the windpipe, is the esophagus, the windpipe is the esophagus, that is the food pipe, carotid arteries, and the jugular veins. These are to be cut. In fact, ulama say that even if 3 of them are cut, the slaughtering is complete. It is halal. What is prohibited is any practice of cutting off parts of an animal or removing its skin while still alive. So you can imagine the mercy shown in Islam to the animals, that even if you are killing the animal, don't, he said, remember, he said, kill well. Don't cut off any parts while it is still alive. That will give pain to the animal. Don't remove the skin while it is still alive. And one important thing, I'm going to translate, remember, I'm going to translate all these things in our scientific language of today. Islam promotes calm and rested animals. Any animal, we said, if you remember, we said any animal which is wild, it has a different rules. These animals which we are slaughtering, the cow, the goat, the sheep, or camel, they must not be fatigued. They must not be tired. They must not be excited. They must not be nervous. These things, I'll be coming to it, they help to release certain hormones which deteriorate the quality of meat, the eating quality of the meat and the keeping quality of the meat. So such meat has lesser shelf life and lesser shelf life, I would say. If you recall, during or the meat at the Qurbani, usually it has a different taste. Quite often we say, oh, this doesn't taste like what we buy from the market. If that animal is fatigued, and quite often it is, or if it is excited or nervous, it has released certain hormones which have adversely affected the quality of the meat. So we'll come to this as well. So any act that may cause nervousness or neurosis or excitement or any other abnormal behavioral changes is prohibited. So you can imagine that the animal in Islamic slaughtering or in what we call zabiha, the animal has to be calm. And the practice, one thing, the practice of collective slaughtering, that means a few animals, we have them together, and while the others are watching, we slaughter their friends. This practice of collective slaughtering is prohibited. The animals waiting slaughter, they must not view their companion being killed. This, firstly, is inhumane, and secondly, it again deteriorates the quality of the meat. All right. So, having said what Islam requires, and remember, this was said some 1400 years ago. Let's see what the modern science is telling us in this regard. The last slide we saw, that is collective slaughtering. It is generally regarded undesirable that animals awaiting slaughter view their friend, view their companion. That causes stress. And we have already said stress is undesirable. It will deteriorate the quality of the meat. And any animal that is under stress leads to undue emotional instability. It results in fatigue. It results in anorexia. And all these conditions, they'll give you a poor quality meat in terms of consumption, eating, and in terms of storage. Such meat cannot be stored for a long time, and it does not have a good taste. Moving further, what happens when the animal is under stress? The scientific evidence says that the animals under stress, they discharge hormones, adrenaline, 17-dehydroxy and deoxycorticosterone, and from adrenocortex. These hormones, they deplete, they reduce the muscle glycogen. Now, this is another factor we have got, glycogen. Animal muscles have starch in the form of glycogen. And this glycogen is essential. Firstly, it provides them with the energy. And secondly, as far as the slaughtering is concerned, this converts into lactic acid, and lactic acid reduces the pH of the meat. And lower the pH, better is the keeping and eating quality of the meat. So these hormones, they have harmful effects on meat quality. And quite often, tranquilizers are recommended to calm these talks in transit. Because when the animals move in transit, they get nervous, they get nervous, etc., and they are given tranquilizers so that they can remain calm. The modern methods, you said, require scientific evidence. Our scientists have told us that the modern methods or the animals in the modern method, the animals must not be subjected to stress, fatigue, nervousness, or excitement. We've already discussed these. Animals, the hormones are released under these conditions. Again, then another thing is rough handling. During Qurbani, for example, we have witnessed that if an animal gets loose, runs away, and then 10, 15 people, they run after that animal, is scared. That rough handling, or even otherwise, in pre-slaughter period, it adversely affects the quality of the meat. It will give you a dark, firm, and dry meat, and the consumer doesn't like it. The fatigued or starved animals, they have organisms from their gut which invade the bloodstream and they reach the muscle, decrease the quality of the meat. And when I say quality, it means both the eating quality as well as the keeping quality. Both are reduced. Relaxation, we are still talking of the same thing over and over again. Relaxation before slaughtering, what does it do? It builds up muscle glycogen. We said glycogen is part of the muscle, it's present in the muscle, it's present in the liver, and this is essential to reduce the pH of the meat. And it also helps the animal to bleed better, bleed well. And of course, as I said, this gives a better eating and keeping quality, and storage life is increased by reducing the chances of microbial growth. The presence of glycogen improves the taste due to conditioning tenderness, and it helps to delay or reduce the fermentation in the stomach, which otherwise may give you a characteristic smell, which is called bone taint. So that simply, let's take it, reduces the quality of the eating quality of the meat. Feeding the animals, there are different schools of thought. There are two schools of thought. We'll see what the Holy Prophet has said. The Holy Prophet has advised that animals destined for slaughtering should be well fed and they must be provided with drinking water. If you have observed during Qurbani, we always tell somebody to show water to the animal, let the animal drink water. Although at that time the animal is sick of the people and doesn't want to drink. But still we try that in case it drinks. So the animal, according to Islam, the animal must be well fed before slaughtering and it must be provided with drinking water. And it is preferable to have that it is preferable that the animals have free access to feed and water prior to slaughtering. All right. Now, that's what I said. There are two schools of thoughts as far as the scientists are concerned, and both are, I would say, right in their own domain. The animals, they say the animals should remain hungry, fasting. And the second school of thought advocates that the animal should be well fed. Looking at the fasting animals, the animals that are not given anything before slaughtering, this is often recommended in the modern abattoirs. Why? The advantages claimed of fasting animals are that they bleed better, their carcass is easier to dress because the bulk from the stomach has been reduced, the carcass has brighter appearance, and there are reduced chances of bacterial contamination from gut. If you remember just 2-3 slides before, I said bacteria invade from the gut. So if they have less food or feed in their stomach, there'll be less chances of bacterial contamination. The disadvantages claimed of the fasted animals are, firstly, there is loss in weight of carcass and liver. Definitely when they are not eating anything, they are consuming their own glycogen or other resources within their body, they'll be losing weight. But it's not that too much. Then the lower glycogen reserve in the muscles. Well, that's a key factor. Fasted animals, they have lower glycogen reserve, and that means we'll have less of lactic acid, which we're going to talk about slightly later. And thirdly, the disadvantage claimed is that there is reduced eating quality of the meat. As far as the well-fed animals are concerned, the glycogen level in the muscle reaches a higher level. And that ensures, as I said earlier, that ensures production or adequate production of lactic acid. Lactic acid is the same acid which is present in yogurt, in buttermilk, in pickles. This lactic acid lowers the pH of meat. And remember, if we have lower pH, the chances of contamination or the chances of growth of external microorganisms, they are reduced. So this meat, which has lower pH, has good appearance, good taste, it is tender, and it has longer shelf life. Now, moving further to scientific evidence, we said, remember, we have said certain things in our introduction, what the Islam requires. Islam requires a soothed animal. Islam requires animal that is not fatigued. Islam requires animal that is not neurotic. So let's see what the scientists say. The spoilage bacteria, they prefer to grow at higher pH, around pH 7. That's ideal pH for the growth of spoilage bacteria or pathogenic bacteria, I would say. And the meat of soothed animal or meat of well-fed animals, it attains something like 5.5 or lower. That means it will have a better quality. Whereas meat from fatigued or nervous animals, it will have pH of 6.5 to 7. That means meat of soothed and well-fed animals, it is better than meat of fatigued or neurotic animals. And that is why feeding animals prior to slaughtering is often recommended to produce good quality. I said both. We have got plus points in both, we have got minus points in both. So we have got to make a selection. And for feeding, sometimes they don't feed hay, they don't feed anything else, but they give them sugar solution. And that sugar solution, it quickly restores the glycogen level in the tissues. All right. So conventionally, the slaughtering process consists of 2 to 3 different stages. It depends on the religious practices and the legislations of the country. Posture of the animal and bleeding method, they are governed by religious and national legislations. And we'll see what the scientists are saying. Right, before that, before bleeding, in the modern methods, stunning has become, I would say, essential. In the Western countries, stunning is required for animals destined for slaughtering. And it is used to make the animal unconscious for gentle and painless death. Please take a note of this. Stunning is aimed at making an animal unconscious so that there is gentle and painless death. There are no standard, there are methods. They are being adopted, but there is no standard method for all animals under all conditions. So for each animal, there's a different method, there's a different condition. Muslims and Jews, they are not in favor of stunning. Jews definitely they are not, and in Muslims, they are slightly divided. But overall, we are not in favor of stunning. Different methods, I'll not go into details, but we'll just have a look at them. Poleaxe has been abandoned. Free bullet, captive bolt pistol, concussion stunner, electrical stunning, carbon dioxide anesthesia, they are all in practice. So the objective of stunning is to have a calm animal. And what we have observed is that this stunning, it adversely affects the quality of the carcass. Stunning causes injury to the medulla oblongata. It's in the neck, below the brain. And this medulla oblongata, it controls the blood circulation and respiration. Remember, we need blood to circulate so that it is drained from the animal body, and we need the heart to pump the blood, and we need respiration so that the blood is removed from the body. It is desirable that these systems they function so that more blood is pumped out of the carcass when the blood vessels are cut. Just a few words about these stunning methods. Free bullet is dangerous to be used. Carbon dioxide anesthesia is being used, but there the exact dose is important, and definitely not every animal, not every bird will respond equally to the gas. Electric stunning is quite widely used. In this case, there is increased frequency of blood splash, and quite often, if the current supplied is not according to the requirements, then either we'll have animal which have survived or we'll have dead animals. In certain cases, up to 5% electrically stirred animals, they suffer from heart failure. That means they are dead before slaughtering, and we are eating, or the consumer is eating carrion and not meat. This is objectionable in the West. It is also prohibited in the Holy Scriptures. So dead animals, which we may get from electrical stunning, they're not acceptable. Just a few words about stunning. Stunning is the outcome of industrial revolution, where we need to produce more in less time. In fact, initially, stunning was used to protect the slaughterer and other employees. And in reality, it has nothing to do with mercy on animals. We have got advocates of stunning, but anyway, so it's outcome of the Industrial Revolution. And Industrial Revolution has provided mankind with innumerable benefits. We have more food, everything. The animal position, when we talk about slaughtering, we say, first thing we said was lay the animal on left flank, preferably facing the Qibla. When we lay the animal on left flank, there is more likelihood of blood to drain out of the body because of the pressure on the heart. And it also enables the animal to convulse, to agitate violently. And when the animal is convulsing, it is pumping the blood from all parts of the body to the heart, and that is drained out of the cut blood vessels. So, this contraction of muscles in the animal, when the animal struggles after the cut is made, it is because of lack of oxygen. That is one. And secondly, lack of blood reaching the brain cells. During convulsions, the blood is squeezed out of the blood vessels. And Hence, more blood is drained out. And definitely, as we said, this is a prerequisite for a good quality meat. For a superior quality meat, quality means both keeping and eating quality. And evidence, that is scientific evidence, there are, we have got both points on both sides. So I'm not taking one side only. In case of sheep, in horizontal position, more blood is lost than in sheep which are hung vertically. So that's one evidence, but definitely there are other studies as well. Islam permits the use of sharp knife or any sharp object for bleeding. The knife must be sharp and the incision is made in the neck. The takbir, Allahu Akbar, has a religious significance. The slaughterer is making submission to the Allah. He is taking permission from the Almighty that I'm taking the life of this animal with your permission. Because the life is granted by the Almighty Allah. And let me read out one verse from the Holy Quran. It says, so eat of meats on which God's name has been pronounced, if you have faith in his signs. So it's a must, it's a requirement for the Muslims that if Allah's name has not been pronounced while slaughtering, that meat doesn't remain halal. And another command again is eat not of meat on which God's name has not been pronounced. So don't eat any meat on which Allah's name has not been pronounced. That would be impiety. But the evil ones ever inspire their friends to commit end with you. If you were to obey them, ye would indeed be pagans. So there are more verses, but these two are selected, that the name of the Allah has to be said before slaughtering. And what do? This is important. All those who are going for Qurbani, please listen very carefully. 2 or 3 things which I have observed when we call these people for slaughtering. Cut the throat transversely without injuring the spinal cord. Without injuring the spinal cord. Please remember this. And cut the carotid arteries, we have already said this, jugular veins, esophagus, and trachea. Now, going back, without injuring the spinal cord. Let me see. The spinal cord. The spinal cord is, it has all the nerves. If you injure the spinal cord, you are injuring the nervous system, and that will cause rapid death. During the Qurbani, we don't get the qualified slaughterers, so we just hire anyone. And what they do is that they simply, when they cut the throat, they will use the knife and cut the spinal cord. Make an injury to the spinal cord. And this promotes rapid death. This is not permitted. Please remember, when you are going for this Qurbani, you have got a slaughterman, tell him, don't touch the spinal cord. If he touches the spinal cord, the animal, will not be halal. Okay. So In the Islamic method, the two requirements are that the animal be slaughtered or dispatched without unnecessary suffering. No suffering to the animal. That's what we require. And bleeding must be as complete as possible. Maximum bleeding. The blood will definitely remain in the meat, but it must be as complete. Maximum bleeding, and maximum bleeding is only possible if the link between the brain and the body remains through the spinal cord, and the spinal cord is not damaged. I'm just repeating this. When the carotid arteries and veins are severed, the connection between the brain and the body is retained via the spinal cord. And the brain keeps on sending the message to heart and the lungs. And the heart pumps the blood to all parts of the body. And it is drained out from the severed blood vessels in the neck. So that's the importance of your spinal cord. Please don't let the slaughterman touch the spinal cord. Or even sometimes they even break the neck. Don't let them break the neck. This can only be done when the animal has died completely. In Islam, we don't torture the animal even before death. So, scientific evidence we have got that maximum blood is lost in kosher method, and kosher method is very similar to Islamic as regards the physical details. And minimal blood is lost when the chicken are beheaded, jhatka. Those who are aware of it, the Sikhs perform jhatka. They cut the neck with a single blow of the sword. That's called jhatka, and minimum blood is lost in that jhatka. And maximum in the kosher method, which is similar to Islamic method. Okay, so the Islamic method ensures drainage of maximum blood from the body before completion of death process. And in this case, the unconsciousness is induced between 3 to 6 seconds. That means the animal is feeling the pain for maximum of 6 seconds. Now, if you remember the first ayat which we talked about, that was forbidden to you is swine, blood, and carrion. Blood. And we are insisting all the time, we're talking of proper bleeding, we're talking of cutting blood vessels to remove the blood. Why? Blood is an excellent medium for the growth of microorganisms. And if more blood is retained in the meat, more than the critical level, then there'll be bacterial growth. And remember, we have got spoilage bacteria, we have got pathogenic bacteria. And both of them, they will grow in the meat. The blood retention can cause unpleasant appearance. It can cause discoloration in the meat. And of course, we have been talking about eating and keeping quality. Keeping and eating qualities of the meat, they depend in part on removal of maximum blood from the carcass. So remember that we have to remove the blood. And another thing which I have not mentioned here, in fact, I did mention something back that blood contains something like 100 different chemicals, and some of them are toxic. If you are drinking blood, it will cause toxicity. And if the blood is retained in the animal body, in the animal tissues, it may result in the growth of microorganisms they may be spoilage organisms or they may be pathogens. So removal of maximum blood is required. For this, the heart and the respiratory system must function as long as possible. And remember, I said no injury to the spinal cord. This is here, I've got it here as well, that this is attained when heart and respiratory functions are attained by maintaining medulla oblongata. Spinal cord, the part near to the head is the medulla oblongata, and that controls the respiration and the heartbeat. And this injury to the spinal cord, it will stop the activity of heart, it will stop the activity of lungs, and definitely it will prevent the blood to flow out. The positioning of the animal in Islam is important. It prevents, in this modern scientific, in the modern abattoirs, the animals are hung, the birds are hung. But if they are late, in fact, because of the industrial revolution, they need to slaughter more animals. So they slaughter more animals, and they so we are coming to end. So position of animal, it the laying of the animal prevents retraction of carotids and ensures rapid onset of unconsciousness and painless death. There's less pain in this method. And in Islamic method of slaughtering, maximum blood is drained, and this outranks any other slaughtering technique. Hence, it gets you get better quality of meat. बंद कर दिया? Move forward. Not moving forward. Well, I've got just, I think, all right. Okay. It's a better quality meat in Islamic slaughter. And then coming to the final conclusion, the current scientific data reveals Islamic recommendations for slaughtering animals are highly rational. Good physique and health are considered basic requirements for selection of food animals. Pre-slaughter management, in fact, what Islam has recommended, this is being applied in the modern slaughterhouses, that the animals should not be fearful, fatigued, excited, or neurotic. And proper rest is essential. They should not be hungry, they should not be thirsty, and the knife should be sharp to reduce the pain. Just okay, just a few words about the animal rights. It's just a few words. The Holy Prophet has advised that we save animals from hunger and thirst, nourish the animals well, show kindness to animals. Islam has given animal rights long before the human rights were recognized in the Western world. Do not hit or mark the animal on its face. Do not shoot any arrows at cattle or bird tied up. And do not fight the animals for sports. And of course, just a very small thing, do not unjustly kill even a sparrow, a very small bird, other than for food. So I think with this, I would like to say thank you very much for your patience, and I'll be pleased to answer any questions if there is time. Over to you, Mohan Saab. इसको रिवाइज कर दो.
At our Facebook Live as well. So our honorable speaker have to ask and have to answer your questions.
आ रही मेरी आवाज मुझे आ रही है. ठीक है. I think there are no questions.
There are some questions.
Okay, okay, okay. Please, I just want to reiterate two things. Don't let the slaughterman injure the spinal cord. And don't allow them to break the neck. Everything has to be done after the animal has died completely. Please, over to you. No.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Sam.
Yes, sir. We have some questions from our Facebook, and let me ask those questions to you so that our participants who joined us through Facebook and YouTube Live, they may also address their questions. So one of the questions we received from Fareed Ahmed from Brunei Darussalam is asking that I would like to bring your kind attention towards the environmental hygiene while slaughtering at the time of Eid al-Adha.
I think that's a difficult question because we are slaughtering everywhere. And definitely we try to keep our slaughter in a place which is clean.
Yes, sir.
So, but that's what we do. Utmost our try is that the place is clean, it's not dirty, but definitely when you go to the villages, you are using
Sir.
you are laying the animal on the ground, but that's only for slaughtering. Skinning is done on the when it is tied up.
Okay.
So that's
okay. If there are any questions from the participants from the Zoom, they can ask their question to Dr. Aziz Zawan from here as well. Yes, please. Yes, is there any question from the...
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम.
सर एक क्वेश्चन ये था कि स्लाइड में मेंशन किया था और आपने बताया था कि pain persists only for 3 to 6 seconds. Then why the animal shows painful sensation behavior continuously for some more minutes?
right. That is actually not painful sensation. That is convulsions. The blood is drained out of the blood is drained out of the arteries, and it doesn't reach the brain. So the brain is struggling to get blood, and that struggle goes to the heart. It goes to the body, and it translates to the body that right, send me the blood, and the body makes all the efforts to send the blood to the brain.